it's my honor and privilege to welcome two professionals, two entrepreneurs who are making a difference to the careers of young adults and making a contribution to their careers by helping them choose the right careers. Confucius said, if you make your hobby your profession, you don't have to work. Hopefully, the two guests that we talked to today are people who are helping people find their ikigai. Let me welcome Urvashi Walik and Arjun Sethi to this BW Education Dialogue. Welcome, Arjun and Urvashi.
Thanks, Anurag.
Good to talk to you. And let me first start by asking Urvashi, how have been the last 6 months for you personally and professionally?
So it's been quite a mixed bag, but overall, I think more positives. So personally, I've got to spend a lot of quality time with family. Earlier, we were all sort of busy running after our professions and spending maybe a couple of hours together in the evening. That also not every day. But now we've had to, we've spent a lot of quality time together. My son is 27 years old. I don't think he's ever spent the kind of time he spent with us earlier. So that's been great. As far as professionally, we have focused on taking our operations online and virtual. But at the same time, we've again ensured that the close connect we had with our clients has been maintained. So professionally also, it's been rather good. We are a very close-knit, all-women's counseling firm. Arjun might take objection to that, but I believe women make very empathetic counselors, and they're sort of very good understanding the pressures kids go through and counsel them accordingly. I beg Arjun can say his piece once I finish. So, and we work a lot collaboratively. Now, while we have managed to keep most of the systems alive and even strengthen some of the systems while we are offline, one does miss, the spending the time together in office, the banter in office, the fun apart from the work. However, if I look at just work, I think the productivity now, everyone's productivity is even higher than earlier. So in terms of focus on work, it's much better. In terms of contact with our students, I think it's more regular now that we have access to them, and they also don't have too many avenues. They're not going out gymming, they're not going out partying, they're also at home concentrating on their academics and their futures. So our contact with students is more regular and better. And it's always easy to squeeze in that 10-minute meeting, even if the entire day is busy. Online one can squeeze that in. Also, I find parents have been more accessible as far as our work is concerned over the last 6 months. And they've been able to give that quality time to help their students take the informed decisions that they have to take for their careers. So overall, personally and professionally, all good so far. Sometimes not meeting people and the lack of social contact gets to you. And I think that must be the case with everyone. But
you're right. Urvashi, I've been married for 20 years to the same woman. I must qualify. And for the first time, I spent 3.5 months with my parents at one go because I'm always traveling. And I tell people my marriage is successful because I'm always traveling. Before they make judgments, I tell them that my wife is in the travel business. So just to tell you, I've broadly shared your sentiments. But only thing I'd add is that productivity for every employee is not the same. There are motivated employees, they can work from home. They were productive earlier, but not everyone is productive. Rest, I fully agree with what you said. And
ours is a very small team.
Right.
So the passion with which everyone works, I don't think there is a need for my daily monitoring or sort of that. So the passion is what drives almost everyone in the team. So I don't find productivity getting impacted because we're not in office.
Thank you so much. Arjun, you heard Urvashi.
Yeah, of course. And I would like to start with her sort of claim about women being better counselors. I completely agree. So, and in our team of 18, we have 16 women, and it's me and there's one more person who's an IIT Delhi BTech grad. For the last 2 years, he's been working with us. He's the only other male member. And I totally agree that, the quality of conversations and the ability to connect the dots, have that ability to pause and think through in the people that we've handpicked, trained, and also sort of mentored in our team has been commendable. Also during this time when the world just turned upside down for everyone, it just led to that same belief that the conversations we have with our students have to be meaningful, have to be engaging. At the same time, conversations with our team members have to make something work beyond just the black mirror that we look at all day these days. So I don't want to talk too much about the 180 days. Personally, I feel reinvention has been something, a common thing for people who are hardworking, who are entrepreneurial. And every entrepreneur I speak with or connect with has said the same thing. They've either became a lot more confident about who they were, or the way they managed things, or the way they managed people. And it's been true for me too. I've been a sort of a reticent person, not very outgoing, but it just seems that this whole era of staying connected and also making that human connection through this new means is just helping me a lot. And I can also talk about a few new things we did, but that's something for later. Let's continue.
Thank you, Arjun and Urvashi, for those honest insights into how your last 6 months have been. I want to shift gears. We're doing this as BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. For the last 4 months, every Wednesday we talk to leaders like you who are in the skilling, education, career space. And we've had everybody who matters in India talking to us, right from the minister to the secretary, to the AICD chairman, UGC chairman. And I do this personally because I really believe education is where transformation happens. Skills is where transformation happens. If you are able to, as I said right up front, choose a hobby or a profession that kind of matches, then you automatically excel, and that's magical. So let me shift gears and talk to you about careers. Tell us, COVID has brought in a lot of new rules. It has brought in a new mindset. You yourself alluded to that. Tell us what has changed in terms of careers in the last 6 months. I'd start with Arjun first. And hence, how should parents look at it? How should students look at it? Arjun?
Yeah, it's a very, very, very interesting question. And I think the world is still figuring out what the new careers or what impact it's been on careers. To be honest, the age group we work with, Urvashi and I, have a similar practice, which is high school kids. And it's the parents who are concerned about careers more than the kids are, because it's formative years for them. And with the plethora of liberal arts colleges that are now mushrooming in India and elsewhere, this Gen Z is kind of getting up to accepting the fact that we don't know what we really want to do, but we'll figure it out. And I think we'll end up doing more than 2 or 3 things in our lifetime. Unlike, say, you and me, and I've been a counselor for more than 2 decades now, and Urvashi likewise has been in education for so many years. It's just interesting that just accepting, as parents, we have to accept that yes, kids are going to grow up in a rapidly changing world. The pandemic is just an example of how it gets disrupted. But trends for careers, it's hard to say. I think what's important is what skills will be kind of critical to sort of not just thrive, but also shine in this new sort of setting. And we can talk about that a little later, and it's kind of linked to our...
I want to understand, Arjun, what has changed? Of course, we're in a transitory time. We're doing this through compulsion. It's not a choice. But I want to know from your conversations with students and parents, what has changed? In your understanding, what has changed in India? For example, traditionally going to the US was very important. Studying in Ivy League for those who want to and can. But are parents more reluctant to send them abroad? One question. Second is, as I rightly asked, what are the new careers? And you're right, you and me, I'm doing the same thing for the last 20 years. I started Exchange for Media, ran it for 13 years, built it, and my co-founder looks at it and runs it even better than me. And I acquired Business World 7 years back. We built it to a different level. You're right, in this last 6 months, we've built Business World to a different level. Our ambition has become very different. We want to be India's #1 business media, and in all aspects, in print, in television, in online, in B2B communities, in B2C communities. That's a very big ambition. But what we've done in 6.5 months, the lockdown kind of prepares us for that, if I may say. So I want to ask you, what is happening in the mind shift change in terms of parents? I mean, I know a lot of parents want to send their kids to Canada. They always, Canada is seen as progressive, safe, lower fees, gateway to America. So, now are there Indian parents who are saying, oh, let's not send our children to the US, let them send to a particular university in India? So I just want to know some real slices of the conversations.
Right, I think early in the game, okay, Urvashi, you want to take it first? Go ahead.
So in terms of careers, what I've noticed in terms of shift in conversations I'm having with parents is I find there's a more focus on discussions around ROI now. So they're looking at careers which are or majors in college which sort of provide higher employability post their education. They're also choosing careers and courses on the basis of the work visas granted by different countries for those courses. So that's one shift which I've noticed in the last 6 months. The questions were there earlier, but the questions are coming up more and more now on these 3 areas. Other than that, the other thing that you mentioned was the diversification of options. So yes, I find parents are now looking at diversified options. So earlier we had students who were, more US centric or at best looking at maybe Canada or UK. But today we have parents looking at a number of countries. So they're not looking at just applying to a fixed number of universities in US. They're also saying, we'd like to look at Erasmus in Amsterdam, or we want to consider this university in Germany. We want to consider this in UK. So they're looking at far more options overseas, as well as looking at the good options in India.
I totally second that. And also the fact that there is so much information and good quality events being organized online, and we nudge our students to connect with people they would have never thought they would want to. So for instance, like you mentioned, universities in Netherlands or others in Europe, they're all becoming so forthcoming, and hence the flow of information has increased. And we can distill that. Urvashi and I can have the lens to say, okay, this is a great event and students should sort of go for that webinar, or these speakers are outstanding on a topic that you might be interested in to discover university choices, which are American style if that's what you prefer, but outside the US. So that's becoming increasingly kind of popular to look at choices outside. But having said that, in the months of April and May, there was this whole wave about, what's going to happen. But by and large, most families that we work with in terms of demographics have kind of settled to the idea that let's continue to stay on course and not change our plans too much. We can add a few colleges, but also keep the list as if nothing has changed much. So just to talk about that a little bit maybe later.
Okay, Arjun. Urvashi, let me come back to you. Is there a playbook to choosing a career for this student? I don't believe in a cookie cutter approach in anything, but there are broad rules. There are broad rules, and I'm talking of broad rules. Every child is special and unique. His or her aspirations are unique. So I don't believe in a broad brush in anything, generalization. But I'm just saying there is a playbook, broad playbook, and then that needs to be kind of custom. So I'm just asking.
Yeah. So first off, what I tell kids is don't get focused on one career right now. Everybody in their lifetime is going to have a career portfolio. So look at what all do you want to add to that portfolio. And when you begin your search as to where to start, now when we say portfolio, it's a very open term. Where do they begin? So for starters, what we do with our children is we put them through some kind of psychometric tests, we put them through an aptitude analysis. More important than that, we put them through interest identification exercises to see what is it that interests them, what is going to keep them engaged for the rest of their lives, what is going to keep them enthused enough for them to feel we're not working. Like you started the conversation with Confucius.
Yeah, I really believe in it. Yeah. I really work 15 hours a day because I'm not working, I'm having fun. My book is coming out, it's called 8 Days a Week. Because I have fun 8 days a week, why would I stop having fun? I'm talking to you, I mean, is this work? That's what I do all day.
So we have to teach our kids to find what they're passionate about and not really follow any set patterns that engineering is what all boys do and this is what's going to give you a great career. No. Why can't you get into something like art history? Why can't you look at archaeology if that's what interests you? Why can't you look at art therapy if psychology interests you? So look at what sort of resonates with you in terms of your interests, in terms of your learning styles, and in terms of your aptitudes, and then decide which way you want to head. And remember, the path you choose today, you don't have to stick to that path. Always be open for more opportunities, changes along the way, learning along the way. And that's a constant conversation we have with our students. They start with us as early as grade 9. So the conversations start from there. So I've had a student who came to us saying, I want to study economics because that's what he believed was the right thing to do. Changed his mind. He's gone literally through economics, psychology, engineering. We've now zoned down on industrial engineering. He's now in grade 12 and that's where he's heading. Yeah, but this is after we've had these conversations about different careers and we've given him exposure to these different careers in different ways. So that's
absolutely.
You've got to choose your path.
I think that's a great introduction to this idea of figuring out what you could be doing or studying for that matter. You go to college to study first, and of course experience living in a place away from home for the first time, and at the same time grow socially, connect with a global thought sort of pool if you plan to study abroad or study in fine universities respected anywhere in the world. So it's the only difference I would say in our approach is we do not believe in assessments, the kind of inventories, and we do have them. We have one of the world's best offerings. But to be honest, with the years of experience of having conversations with students, we build rapport, and our first 6 hours is just connecting. And these are deeper conversations or even doing fun exercises and quizzes together. So sort of helps students sort of shake off their inhibitions. They kind of speak a lot more about who they are, what they are in a friendly environment. And then, if we kind of feel that there is an assessment which could help us nudge them in a certain direction, so be it. Fortunately, both Urvashi and I have a huge sort of alumni connection in the sense, even Urvashi's daughter was my student, but again, they all stay in touch. It's been fantastic to just be able to meet them when I travel. When Urvashi travels, she meets so many of her past students. And it's those shared experiences, those narratives vicariously, we sort of live their life and then share that with our current students. That's making a huge dent in their sort of approach to careers. Very often we have students invited to our offices now over Zoom. It's become even more popular to have our students share their experiences. We've had sessions on future of careers in technology, just it started by talking about technology and different kind of jobs FAANG companies would offer, but eventually it led to a lot of life advice. And that was really useful for our kids to know that, there is someone who's gone through a lot of pain, even into a highly selective college that they would aspire to. So I think it's important to bring all these pieces together, connect the dots, have these conversations, but at the same time, lead to some sort of action plan for the kids so that they can follow and do projects or do certain things like an interesting online course, which is perfect for them. So we sort of, once we know them, we sort of nudge them to those activities, and it's been working well.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to ask you, Arjun, what is your advice to parents?
Okay, remember when you were 15 or 16 and it's okay to be clueless, or if your child is
I'm a hairless, toothless infant. I'm very curious, okay?
Right. Right.
We call Mr. Curious. And
I was thinking when I read this, I said, Urvashi should be answering this question, because I just feel that I just stayed a high school kid in my mind. That's what I've been doing for so long. I feel more like a high school student than a parent, and Urvashi, I know, definitely feels more like a parent. And I would take that student question.
Yes, I feel like a parent. I sort of relate with the parents. I relate with the pressures they go through. So what I say is, keep the communication channels open. The students are also going through a very tough time right now. I mean, they're sort of missing their social connect with their friends, with their teachers. So as parents, we've got to be supportive. We've got to keep the communication channels open, and we've got to remain positive. Help them take informed decisions through this time. Be involved in their career decisions, their application process. So be there for them. That's it.
Thank you so much. I identify as a parent with it, but as a young 15, 16-year-old, I had an older sister who was academically, she was first or second, mostly first in class. I was 8th, 10th, 12th, that kind of. So, and I went to convent school. My parents are academicians. My father studied at BITS Pilani, chose to be a professor. So there was a lot of academic pressure. But luckily, they allowed me to take whatever I wanted. And I think that has helped me tremendously. So, but parents sometimes live the dreams they had for themselves, for their children, it's not, so that's also true. They want their children to do well. And you know it, both apart from being counselors, I'm sure you understand that. What I want to know from you, Arjun, and then from Urvashi is, if again you had to say 2-3 things to the parents so they can help. Urvashi said, keep the communication going. I would say, I didn't know that I wanted to be in the media business. I did what most people do before they do anything at that age, I'm talking on late 80s and early 90s. They go to an engineering school or a medical school or a CA. So I went to an engineering school. Then I figured out that I want to do an MBA. So I luckily got into a good school. And I worked for 4 years, took a very unusual path, and Exchange for Media happened, and then Business World happened. Now I know this is the only thing I like and I would do. So I think only by trial and error, and I used to use the word, I'm an accidental entrepreneur, but I now use the word serendipitous entrepreneur. Accidental is something negative. I enjoy it. So I think the point I'm trying to make is Indian parents do not encourage their children to experiment. I won't use the word fail, but experiment. Randy Pausch said, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And some of those experiences may be better than what you want. So can you tell us what is your advice to parents?
I think
yeah, go ahead.
I would say that if you can, like you mentioned Ikigai in your earlier question, and I think parents love that book. Kids may or may not relate to it. They say, oh wow, this is for an 80-year-old to read about Ikigai. But 80-year-olds who want to live till 110. So they may or may not connect, but our kids do. We actually make them do an exercise of Ikigai. But if a parent made them do it, it would be a very different ballgame. So I think believing that kids crave challenge and they crave learning, sometimes doing it at home, wearing a hat of a parent and a coach is difficult. I'm facing that too, my 17-year-old son. So I've had clear boundaries that I'm a parent, I'm not your counselor. You can talk to XYZ in my team too.
You can't do that. That's why I had my daughter Arjun. You can't be your child's counselor.
I have some idea of that.
Yes.
I have some idea. But luckily, they understand that dad can help them in certain areas. So they both talk to me. But yes, I agree that we may still support, but we bring in a professional because the conversation can be more uninhibited.
Yes, absolutely.
So in terms of the support, I'm sure, Urvashi, you would have interesting things to share. I would just kind of, other than just identifying the right mentors, which is like, counseling service, but more than that, you can find mentors across the board from people in your circle, even a chance information interview or a planned sort of career trek, 2-3 hours in a particular office. So, Dr. Batra's office or Urvashi's office would be a good thing for some of our students. Go ahead, Urvashi. Why don't you add something more to this?
Yeah.
I understand experiences. I think what Arjun was saying is they need to experience different work environments and different careers in small capsules. Once they do that, I think sometimes it eliminates some things that they don't want to do. That also helps. I think it's a great idea to have internship early and in a deep way, not just a tick mark. And those mentors actually getting work out of, these colleagues so that they get real slices of what they're going to do if at all they chose that career. Urvashi, you were saying something.
So, in fact, we had a student whose dad is a very famous architect here in Delhi, and maybe he was considering architecture also as a career. So we got him to do a 3-month-long internship with a young architect's firm. But by the end of it, what emerged was this boy was very clear that architecture was not for him. And next, he was interested in economics. So basically an overlap of economics and policy. So his next internship was in that area. And that's where he's found his true calling. So yes, this always works. And this is a part of our exploration with students. What we start from grade 9 onwards is exploration through interesting summer workshops, reading the right kind of books, reading articles on a weekly basis on different careers which we send to our students. So that's how they're going to find what they really want to do. Of course, as a mentor and a parent, we'll all have to work together as a team to keep guiding them through this process. But yes, I think it's a great idea, Arjun. Yes.
Let me shift to universities and campuses and educational brands. Tell us, are there new educational brands or campuses or universities that are kind of more attractive than the Ivy League? I mean, Ivy League is Ivy League. A Harvard, a Stanford, a Yale, a Kellogg, so tell us, give us examples of new universities or new institutions that are coming up that could be very helpful. Of course, some of them may be specialized. And the second question is, the new education policy came out about 8.5 weeks back. Tell us, how does it help a student? We're talking finally of universities that are interdisciplinary, courses that are. I remember my CEO of Exchange for Media, his son just completed a dual degree from Sloan, where it is management and engineering. I mean, he's in chemical sciences. He went to Tufts, but he's done that. And some universities have been doing this for many years. So give us, first question is, are there new brands or destinations or universities that have emerged that are very attractive? And second, what is the impact of the new education policy on the way parents, students, and the whole educational ecosystem is thinking?
Sure. I think it's a great question. My view is any education institution, even a single person who's a great educator teaching kids, if they're good, kids will flock to you. And some of these institutions obviously are not just run by one individual. They've taken over 200 years to build. And of course, there are new kids on the block, which are sort of really doing a great job of catch up and offering something pretty unique and traditional. It's sort of combining the traditional, but adding a unique, new, modern flavor to it. In India itself, we see a resurgence of good universities. Of course, Ashoka is a fine example. It's reached a point where it has challenges of growth, but you also have new ones like Kriya that have come up in India, making waves. Plaksha, which is not yet launched.
That's the one in Hyderabad, in the
south
street.
of Hyderabad. It's kind of north of Chennai, 80 kilometers.
Srini Raju, he's a good friend of mine, yeah.
Right.
In fact, I was with my father-in-law, mother, and brother-in-law on Sunday, and my nieces, I have two nieces, Muskan and Anya, they were talking to me about Kriya, and I didn't know. It's my job to know, but I didn't know.
Yeah, so Dr. Sundar Ramaswamy is a great educator. He was at Middlebury College for many years. He's taken leave of absence.
I want to tell you, Arjun, the student remarked, Muskan, who's my niece, who's older than me, 1 year older than my daughter, said the courses are very interesting there. They're very good. That's what she said. It's a nuanced point. So you're right. Clearly, they have built something which is differentiated.
Absolutely. I think the focus has been on academics at all of these institutions which are coming up. Plaksha is a great example of another one, which has become so popular even before it's launched.
Which one?
Plaksha.
How do you spell that?
Plaksha. It's a Mohali.
Yes, it's a group of entrepreneurs professionals who got together. Yes, I'm aware.
Absolutely.
Now the name.
Science-focused courses now.
So they have STEM. They also have entrepreneurship. Kids can also study economics, but mostly STEM. So these are pretty much in our neighborhood. I mean, the two in Delhi, Plaksha, Mohali is not that far. Of course, there's Shiv Nadar. OP Jindal has great courses in law. So kids have it made actually. And of course, many more are required. The NEP can push that. So answering your second question, what we've been doing in the last 3 months is organizing all these universities on a platform, and it's a new initiative. It's called College Fair, and it's interesting because we've got Indian, Canadian, and the US universities on the same sort of platform meet students live in virtual rooms on AirMeet, which is the new sort of Zoom type sort of platform, but for events and conferences. And we've had tremendous success in putting the two together. Interested students finding about universities that offer things that they never thought they could check out or find out from. In times when people can't travel, the university admissions officers love the fact that they could just zoom in and sit in a room and start meeting students, whereas the students also gain from discovering right fit, which perhaps before the 2-hour session they wouldn't have really known much about those universities. So yes, the world is coming together. Of course, there are few universities in China which were popular, as in becoming popular in other parts of the world. They were American universities setting up or alliances with American universities. And I thought that would pick up, but of course, Corona has changed all of that. There are universities, again, American origin, kind of, but in Qatar and in UAE, again, not many families look at it, but the fact is that they offer a very good education at a kind of pittance in terms of cost when you look at the scholarships that they dole out to good students. So yeah, these are a few, but I'm sure, Urvashi, you'd like to add more?
Urvashi?
Yeah. The growing trend now is, see, initially I remember a few years ago, we had to explain the concept of liberal arts education to parents and students. Now that concept is more acceptable because people understand the value of multidisciplinary learning, rather than limiting, let's say, a study of economics to just economics, studying economics in the context of political science, of psychology, of policy, of IR. So that is really being accepted by parents and students even more so. And with these universities like Ashoka in Korea and now Plaksha, they are following the same patterns of interdisciplinary education, which allows students to explore their interests even while they're in college, rather than getting them into a straitjacketed kind of a slot early on. They are allowed to explore their options, add on other subjects that they want to do. So that, I think, is a very, very interesting thing which is happening both in India and overseas.
Fantastic. Let me also ask you about two specific regions, since Arjun brought in China into the conversation. One is Singapore. Now, again, I want to talk to you about Singapore as an education destination. And second is Europe. I want give us the pros and cons. Again, I'm not generalizing, but some things may be clearly accentuated and hence, unique to that Singapore or unique to Europe. And second is, what is your view on, say, an American college campus in Singapore or elsewhere? These are the two questions I want to ask you.
So I can take that up.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the second question. American universities with their campuses in, let's say, Singapore. So I happened to visit Yale NUS, I think last year or the year before that. Even though the education being offered is the same as the education which is being offered at Yale, the vibrancy of an American campus is what's missing. Yeah. So that's one thing I found. In terms of cost of education, Yale NUS is not much lower than a Yale. So it's pretty similar in terms of cost, but the advantage is proximity to home. So there are parents who don't want to send their kids all the way to the US and they want to keep them closer to them. For them, it's a great option because it offers the same liberal arts education closer home. So other than that, when you wanted to know about nuances of Singapore and studying in Europe, so undergrad education in Singapore is pretty good, very, very rigorous. However, it's a very competitive environment to stay in, and diversity is not as much as what you would find in an American campus or even a Canadian campus. So that's one thing which is missing. Also, the education is not as flexible as it is in the American education system. So if you apply for one course, you can't really change your mind a year later and say, I changed my major, this is what I want to do. So that flexibility is missing. So in terms of Europe is now increasingly becoming a popular destination with parents for various reasons. One, with the Trump administration being there in US is losing a bit of its charm right now. We're waiting for the elections, of course. And with the visa regulations getting a little stringent, people are looking elsewhere. Europe is a good destination for a number of courses, but not all areas. For example, the other day I was working with a student who was looking at biological sciences in Europe. Now, the top 50 universities of the world do not offer undergraduate education in biological sciences in Europe. But if you were looking at hospitality, yes, Switzerland is a fabulous destination to be looking at for hospitality. For some other courses like economics and finance, Amsterdam offers great courses. For engineering, for automobile engineering, Germany offers fantastic options where courses are taught in English language. However, the language does become a barrier in a number of universities. They might offer admissions, talking about education being administered in English. But if you're going to get internships, if you're looking out for jobs when you finish, you better be fluent in the local language. So language definitely needs to be picked up if you're planning to look at Europe. But yes, these are interesting destinations.
And Arjun just posted on the Zoom webinar chat about collegefair.live. I'd encourage you to go there. I know about Carnegie Mellon, I know about Vanderbilt, but Swarthmore, first time I heard. And I'm a quizzer, I pride in knowing everything. Swarthmore, Pomona,
Okay.
Harvey-Mudd, Carleton, I've never heard of. Ashoka, Kriya and Palaksha, of course. I've heard of.
Well, your child is in Vasant Valley, and there are many kids who've gone to Swarthmore, Pomona, Harvey-Mudd, and Carleton from
Pomona,
that school.
I've had, yeah.
And these schools are more selective than some of the Ivy League schools when it comes to numbers. So looking them up would be a good idea. Also, the fact is that they are small liberal arts colleges, and they're designed to only sort of provide that intimate, abundant sort of environment for 17-year-olds going abroad to study. They do not have postgrad or doc studies or grad or MBA programs. So their entire reason of existence is to hire great teachers who love teaching and not just kind of running to conferences or publishing papers. So it's very different from a large UCLA or a UC Berkeley or a even large like a Ivy League like Cornell. So happy to share more about that. But best thing to do would be to attend our next event, which is on 16th October.
One participant is asking, Manu Jindal, what's your take on Babson University? For what
It's Babson College and not university, first of all. So it's an
for
undergrad.
entrepreneurship courses.
Yeah.
I have some friends who are younger to me, but they're from there and they talk glowingly of that place. So anyway, Arjun and
Go ahead.
the other experts.
Urvashi, you can go ahead.
Yeah, it's the number one ranked school for entrepreneurship in the US. It's a small school on the outskirts of Boston. Very, very hands-on approach to education. In the first year itself, they sort of group students into small groups of 4, give them a certain notional amount of funds, allocate an advisor, and they start their own business venture. So very, very hands-on, very good for would-be entrepreneurships to consider.
So Manu, you have your answer. Arjun, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to add that there are many schools which offer business and entrepreneurship, and it's important to understand right fit from even the social fit perspective and not just academics or grades or generally the application process. Very often parents and students miss out on doing that research, whether they would be a good match socially to an environment. Like I said, I don't want to...
Cultural fit.
Yeah, exactly. So Babson has a reputation. So do find out what that is. And then if you can sync with it, if that's the kid you are and your parents don't mind writing a check for a Lamborghini and you want to be in that crowd, very good. But again, not every kid has to. But I guess...
Yeah, we'll sort of be able to talk to you one-on-one after we understand.
Absolutely. Let's not spill all the beans here.
Yes. So let me stop
so much.
right there in his tracks.
Yeah,
thank you so much for being so real and authentic and giving, so to say, free advice to everyone. But life is about giving. Always receiving happens when you give. Coming back to 2 more questions, is my second question about new education policy and integrative curriculums. Tell us, what is the shift in the consciousness of parents in the educational ecosystem? Though the education policy will take a lot of time to get implemented. I hope lesser and sooner than later. But tell us, what is the shift in the consciousness? Is there a shift, first of all, or I'm just,
There is an intent to integrate the Indian education system with the global patterns. Rote learning being replaced by interdisciplinary education, privatization of higher education, more privatization of higher education, more emphasis on digitization of education, more open learning systems. So yeah, it sounds very, very good, sounds very visionary, very promising. But there are some concerns with that too. At least I have some concerns. One being the disproportionate emphasis being given to the vocationalization of education very early on. We might be depriving students of a well-rounded holistic learning with that. Secondly, we've tried this. Delhi University has tried this earlier. The 4-year program was introduced, but it wasn't introduced with a proper sort of a backup plan as to how it's going to come in, how the systems are going to work around it. It didn't work. It had to be withdrawn. So I'm hoping this time there will be a proper plan as to how the whole thing is going to pan out. And I think it's going to be a very, very welcome thing as far as the education for our students, the higher education is concerned, because that's what's missing, what they intend to introduce now.
Fantastic. Arjun,
so I think I'd just like to add one more thing. I think it's a courageous move to offer different tracks from 10th grade and also, of course, different tracks from the 12th grade. The time has come. We cannot just have the same 3-year, 4-year degree options after year 16 of your education. It's just not the right thing. And I feel that it's given parents, even including me, to think about my own son, saying that, okay, do we really need a 4-year education for every kind of student? Can't there be a better option than making it more real and more apt for some of his interests, his skills, or, keeping that in mind? If there's a student who's already demonstrated an advanced level of understanding for certain areas of study or has a gift that is unique, it's I think a disservice to just put them in that same kind of environment. I think so parents who are willing to take that as a cue, I think the government's done a great job in spearheading it. Of course, there are so many things that governments do, but the execution is really important. So working on it really quick, and this is the time to do it. This, getting those university tie-ups in, making the hybrid education model work, all of this will be very unique and throw up amazing opportunities for everyone, including counselors who would have to learn a lot more about these new institutions.
In some way, you gave me a segue into... Yes, Urvashi.
I said we are learning all the time. There's new things happening in the education space all the time, and it's so exciting.
We have to keep up with the trends, new developments. That's how you stay ahead of the curve and advise others, because you understand what's happening in the environment clearly. And I love this song by UB40 called Higher Ground. Every day, every hour, we're learning more. The more we learn, the less we know, and we dig from the higher ground. So clearly, learning is an everyday process. It's not about age. It is not a formal process. It is about observation, and it is about hunger. I keep saying, if you have a PhD, you'll do well. Not the PhD I have, that's a permanent damage, but passion, hunger, desire. If you have passion, hunger, desire, you do well. It helps to have a good formal education, and I'm all for it. And I'm not for, you can drop out of the college and be a billionaire. You can do well at academics and still be a billionaire, or whatever you want to achieve. Again, the definition of success has to be very personal. For me, it is about peace of mind, it is about respect, and it is about abundance in my health, my parents' health, my family's health. So, that's the definition of success is very individual. But let me ask you my last 2 questions. My first question is to Arjun. Arjun, you're also entrepreneurs, what I call creative entrepreneurs, edu entrepreneurs, whatever, you're entrepreneurs, right? Tell us what has changed in the last 6 months as an entrepreneur for you? And what is that one lockdown lesson that you learned that will help you throughout your journey?
Yeah, I think so many things have changed.
Go ahead, tell us.
in our industry as well as in our organization. And then before this call, when Urvashi and I were chatting, we sort of chime on so many things together. But I think biggest thing for me professionally has been that the fact that there are amazing opportunities out there, and the network that I've built over these 20 years has become a fantastic support group for me to keep doing what I want to and even exceed my own expectations. And also thrive in the fact that the team that we have 18 people in our team, that they have taken on these challenges head on. We could pride in saying that we're one of the few organizations. We've hired more people. We've also taken all our training online. We've actually, in this day and age, given increments and bonuses to everyone. So the first decision I made when this pandemic hit was, we will stay on course. We will raise salaries like we do every year. We will give bonuses every year. Of course, there were some delays, but in my mind, I accepted the fact that you have to take the ownership. As an entrepreneur, you cannot say, oh, wow, the world's changed a lot and I can't deal with it. I think that's the biggest thing. And I was really surprised with myself and our team in a positive way that we became eternal optimists very quickly and sort of bonded together on Zoom calls like these and sort of turned around the entire sort of problem into an opportunity area. Of course, the college fair, which is a new venture, came up. We became a technology company beyond our college sort of admissions counseling, which is more like an education high touch service company. So we have a product coming up for college admissions, which we do not need funding for. Our college admissions practice sort of takes care of it. And it's a fairly global product. And it's something that we're really very, very keen to launch soon. So more on that later. But go ahead, Urvashi, what were changes for you?
Like I said, we went virtual pretty seamlessly. And my key learning through this last 6 months has been delegation and trust. Those are the key elements which will keep the team motivated and sort of working at their best. Of course, trying to remain connected to the team in whatever way possible, always being there for each other. And I think it's worked very well for us. And I find every time, and we've seen that in history also, anytime there've been some monumental changes, that's when innovation has cropped up. And I think that's happening to our industry too. We're all innovating new ways of working, of connecting with our students, of working better than we were working earlier. Yeah.
Fantastic. I believe, every crisis is an opportunity to change, to find new dimensions, to find new horizons. And I keep saying, whenever it rains, look for rainbows. Whenever it's dark, look for stars. So it's, there are always opportunities out there. So I'm totally in sync with your thinking. And while I'm very mindful of the hardship people have faced due to COVID, both on the healthcare side and lives, and also on livelihoods. I would say the last 6 months have been personally transformative for me and our businesses. So, clearly, I keep saying, Arjun, when will India produce a big product company? Maybe you'll do it. Because we're very good at service. Look at TCS, but we're not good at building products, whether it's media, it's in healthcare, take any sector, it's in education. I'm glad we have a Baiju, we have White Hat Junior, both are good friends. Karan is, of course, I've met him multiple times, Baiju only twice. But I totally believe with you that it is a time to create, it's a time to reinvent, time to pivot, it's a time to orbit change, it's a time to go within. And it's just been a blessing. I'm grateful to God every day for just living and having the life I have. So my second question to both of you is that if I talk to you 1 year from now, see, we don't know the 1 year. The biggest variable is when will COVID go, when the corona vaccine will come in, right? But if I talk to you 1 year from now, I know you're not astrologers, you're not futurists, but I'd like you to make predictions about the education and the gig economy and careers what would have happened in the next 12 months that we are not yet kind of recognizing, or it's still a micro trend. It hasn't manifested itself in a big way in the context of careers, education, campuses. Arjun?
Yeah, so I could begin with education and campuses. So what I'm hearing from friends who are in the admission side or senior vice presidents at some of the top universities is going back to the same old way of recruiting students or even servicing students is going to be challenged, as well as is being challenged. Our college fair is an example of that in terms of how recruitment can change. But if you look at the hybrid model of education, it has its limitations. If you have an education system which is geared towards that seminar style of dialogue and conversations beyond the classroom or the lecture hall, that social fit of connecting with peers from different parts of the world at a one-to-one level, and also then the proximity of sort of doing things together, collaborations. There are challenges, but also uniquely there have been so many interesting articles written about the fact that these virtual online events or activities have become more productive. All of us find that, and we do many more meetings a day.
Yes, they are productive in a way. I have a point of view. I'll tell you at the end.
Yeah, sure. So of course there's fatigue and all of that, but you can stay on top of things. A lot of the creative, for instance, universities which they pride in their art departments or film departments, there's a huge struggle to have students work on Zoom or anything like that. So many students defer, or they've dropped out. They just figured that this is not going to work. If an art studio or a conservatory is open and you see what other students are doing, you also get a pat on the back by a teacher while you're working on something, or a teacher tells you to calm down and sort of focus and do the piece well. Those things are absolutely missing in those sort of curriculums at this stage. So there are some observations on education, but about career, it's really about, I have an example of just my company for that matter. So it's really hard to say what's changing. Kids will have to, when I say kids, when we hire their 23, 24-year-olds. So when they do sort of join our organization, especially now when we haven't even interacted with them and we've sort of done all the recruitment training, onboarding online, it's very important to mentor them in a very different way, given that they would have expected their first job to be at a very social environment, and suddenly they don't have that. So I think it's a responsibility of people who are managing companies or managing the hiring and training to be mindful and sort of give that space and time for people to do the onboarding right. These are my 2 bits.
And Urvashi?
What I see, since you said what you see differently a year later, I see technology becoming a big part of the education, the higher education sector. So, which is going to make education from the top universities of the world far more accessible to larger numbers. So that's the big change which I foresee. Hybrid education will stay. It's not going to go away. We are still going to continue with models of some online large lectures followed by smaller study groups in person. So these are the changes which I see in the education sector in the next 2 years.
Thank you so much. Before I close, I just want to ask you my last question. And there was, when Manu asked about, Babson, he said, how does it compare with Stern? If one has a seat in both, Stern is a new course that merges technology and entrepreneurship, while entrepreneurship is the hallmark of Babson. What would you suggest?
Again, it will depend on the student.
Correct.
It will depend on the student. If the student is interested in technology, in addition to entrepreneurship, yes, the Stern program should be a very, very promising program for him to take up. But if technology is not something that excites him, then go for a plain entrepreneurship program at Babson.
Okay. Now, I want to close by asking you the last question. I know you're a career counselor, you're entrepreneurs, you're well versed with what's happening in the environment. So let me extrapolate it from your business. When do you see the business and economy coming back? And I talk of Indian business and economy coming back in full bloom from the numbers of queries you see. See, education is such that there will be no slowdown. Parents will spend.
Yeah.
That I understand as a parent, right? But I'm saying generally, what is, as entrepreneurs, as people who interact with the society, who understand the environment, when do you think the Indian economy will be back in its full bloom? First you, Urvashi, and then Arjun.
My two bit, though I feel I'm more qualified to talk about my own industry. But if you're talking of other industries, I think by middle of next year, we should be bouncing back.
Okay.
That's what I feel.
I would also be an eternal optimist, but I'm barely qualified to understand the
No, but
economics.
as
Yeah,
your strength,
as pers-
there are too many variables.
Yeah.
It depends on when it goes away, what the government does. The government spends on infrastructure, which I have a sense it will. But there has been a GDP degrowth of 24%. And once the moratorium has gone away, the holding power of a lot of businesses has come down. So we'll see what happens in the next 6 months. So what's your view, Arjun?
Yeah, so both Urvashi and I work with such a skewed demographic that it's
Yes.
we are really not representative of
I agree.
what's happening
I
in the real
qualified.
world.
I didn't say it in
Definitely.
that way, but I.
But yes, like I said, if you have to be optimistic, I would say, yeah, when we know that, the shops are reopening. We have an office in a mall. I'm at the moment at our office. We have very few offices that are open. The reason I'm open is we don't have a team here. It's just me and my apartment is right across the street. So many restaurants have shut down. When I see that things start reopening, at least from my
The
neighborhood
fear factor
perspective,
has to go away.
yeah,
It's a healthcare issue. It needs to be tackled. The
absolutely.
moment that is tackled, you may see in a couple of months things coming back. Is that what you're saying, Arjun?
Yes, and we don't know anything about the vaccine as yet, so I wouldn't want to comment.
Thank you so
Probably
much.
it's a year away.
Thank you so much, Arjun and Urvashi, for talking to
Thank you.
BW Education. I have enjoyed it. For those of you who want to revisit it, you can read it on bweducation.com or visit the BW Education YouTube page tomorrow. And it will be in the BW Education magazine next issue. So you can revisit it. The beauty about video content is you can revisit it when you want to. So all the best to you, Urvashi, and to you, Arjun. And we look forward to having a conversation with you both soon again. Thank you. God bless you.
Thanks, Asra.